Seattle Seahawks are about to become the most expensive NFL franchise sale in history. Paul Allen Estate has agreed to sell the team to a group led by the Kolsa family for $9.612 billion. That's billion with a B, a number that would crush the previous record for an NFL franchise. Kolsa is expected to become the first minority woman to ever have sole control of an NFL team, making this a historic ownership change both financially and culturally. Paul Allen's nearly 30-year run transformed Seattle into one of the NFL's strongest organizations. And now the question is whether the new ownership group can continue that winning tradition. NFL isn't just America's most popular sport, it's becoming one of the most valuable businesses in the world as the Seahawks sell for almost $10 billion, $9.6 billion. This is the definition of selling one on top, like selling high. It's exactly what the Seahawks do after winning a Super Bowl. But obviously, a big sale for the franchise. And, whether or not they win, I think is different because of the fact that this is not like baseball where spending money is going to lead to a championship. There are rules in place, but it really sets the legacy, or really sets the precedent of who is going to be able to buy sports teams in the future, at least in a solo sense. Or are we going to have a group setting now for most ownership of sports teams because the price tag has gotten so high?
Yeah, it's the future has turned into a conglomerate. You're not going to be able to, as a single person, unless you really are rich, one, and two, insane, you're not going to be able to afford to buy one of these teams on your own anymore. The price has just gone absolutely insane. To me, it's also interesting, the wrinkle that she was a former San Francisco 49er owner as well, a minority owner in the Niners. Now she's being forced to sell those shares in order to be able to do this. But, to buy another team in the division, that's quite interesting as well.
That is interesting, but it's almost to the point of like you want to be able to
Yeah.
afford your own team. And you know what? It's like buying and selling stock, right? I mean, that's what you're
Yep.
doing. You're buying and selling shares of the franchise. And, whatever her shares were initially to buy the Niners have probably gone up themselves in
Mhm.
terms of the valuation of the franchise when she sold those and then put them into the Seahawks. And why wouldn't you do that if you had the ability and you had other means of a financial avenue to be a minority owner and turn yourself into a majority owner? I think that's what a lot of minority owners probably would like to do if they like to call the shots and want to run things a certain way. If they just want to collect the check of the like being an owner and having like the fun, like there's still a lot of perks without taking as much of a risk. She obviously wants the extra risk. Seahawks finally sell again close to $10 billion. But I mean, you look at the stages of this, of the NFL franchise values. Broncos sold for $4.65 billion. The Commanders sold for $6 billion, and now the Seahawks getting close to $10 billion. I mean, how high can NFL franchises values go? If the Jones family didn't want to own the Cowboys, I mean, that is probably a pretty penny to try to buy the Dallas Cowboys in this day and age.
It's about 10 to 15 billion, I would have to assume, based off
I
of
would
what the
assume that,
Seahawks are
right?
going. So, yeah, it is amazing, and especially with the value just of the NFL as a whole, that is only going to make these teams more and more expensive to buy as well.
I look at this and from a standpoint of being able to buy franchises. I just think it's probably going to be more. There's two things that can happen. One, it's going to be group effort,
Mhm.
or two, you're just going to have the Steve Cohens of the
A
world,
psycho.
or there's somebody that just is super into wanting to be an owner of a professional franchise. And I mean, there's going to be franchises going to be a lot easier to buy in sports. The NFL is going to be the hardest thing in the United States to buy if you're an owner. But I think that leads to like there's not going to be these. And we talked about this before the Padres sale went through. There's not a lot of owners anymore that are mom and pop shop owners, if you will, where that is their sole income and they cut corner or they do everything they need to do to try to make that as profitable as possible, because if they don't make any money. That's the type of owner you want, the one that this is just kind of a toy. And so for Seattle, we'll see what happens with this. I don't think anything really changes though when it comes to the
No.
organizations, the NFL. Like when you have at least in this day and age, I mean, with the salary cap and everything like that, unless you're getting a Spanos family to buy, which they would never be able to afford teams like this in this day and age. I mean, ownership groups aren't changing anything that crazy when it comes to money because everything's relatively the same with the salary cap. If they decide to call the shots and they're not good football people, then yeah, that could have a catastrophic effect on how teams are run. I think you see that more with families that run teams that have had them for generations, though, more so than new ownership groups. New ownership groups usually lead to more success. I think you're starting to see that with Washington a little bit. I know they had a setback last year, but things seem to be trending in the right direction. The Broncos, of course, have been good over the last handful of years. I don't think anything really changes for Seattle unless they are just incompetent football wise. But the fact that they're coming from the Niners already, they know how the organization works. They've been part of this before. This is not brand new to them. This is not somebody that's never owned a sports team taking over. I think that bodes well for Seahawks fans.
Yeah, it should be exciting. You have a divisional rival who has had success. The Niners have made it to Super Bowls recently, and the Seahawks coming off of winning one. So it's not like they have to build up to that winning potential. It's already there. They just won a Super Bowl, and now you have an owner coming in who knows what it's like to run an NFL franchise, as you said, and not only just run an NFL franchise, run and winning NFL franchise as well. So they this shouldn't be too noticeable of a change for Seattle in that regard.
No, and it really continues to show that, buying sports teams is usually in the end game very lucrative.
Mhm.
I might not be very lucrative as you own it, but when you sell it, it's going to go up in value and it's going to be very useful. That's why it's fun to get involved when there's publicly traded teams out there. I'm surprised, right? I'm surprised you haven't started throwing a couple of ducats here and there in the stock market to buy the Atlanta Braves and
I
slowly
have.
take it over. You know what?
That's
Hard
when
under the
that's when they
Braves.
started going down. It's working. The plan is working.
It's the best way to help the Mets out. The best way for you to help the Mets out, just start spending money on the Atlanta Braves.
Exactly.
Seahawks sell for a record high. We'll see if what the next team is and what they sell for. But it definitely goes to show it pays to own a sports franchise.